But first, there's been a major shakeup in Nigeria's security services after weeks of terror attacks, including the recent coordinated attacks by Boko Haram that killed 186 people, and the escape from custody of the main suspect in a Christmas Day bombing that killed at least 37 people.
President Goodluck Jonathan fired Nigeria's Chief of Police Harris Ringim and retired 6 of his deputies late Wednesday as pressure mounts on the administration to halt the violence by Boko Haram. Mr. Jonathan immediately named Assistant Inspector General Mohammed Abubakar as the nation's new police chief. For more, we're joined by correspondent Scott Stearns, now covering the State Department for VOA here in Washington. Hello, Scott.
Good morning, Vincent.
Good morning. Now we know that the U.S. will offer counterterrorism assistance to Nigeria. What is the nature of this assistance, Scott?
U.S. counterterrorism officials have been in Nigeria this week, meeting with their colleagues following the most recent violence in Kano and Bauchi State. It's a series of assistance. As you know, the FBI, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, is providing post-bombing forensic investigation assistance. The Department of Treasury is helping the Nigerian government source the funding for Boko Haram. There's also training for Nigerian military and civilian authorities to better pursue the Boko Haram threat. In a larger sense, a State Department spokeswoman, Victoria Nuland, said this week, responding specifically to the bombings in Kano, that the Obama administration is calling on Nigerians to come together, to unite, to use their ethnic and religious diversity as a source of strength against those enemies of peace and civility who are trying to divide the country.
Now, Scott, why is it very important for the U.S. to assist Nigeria fight Boko Haram?
Well, Nigeria matters to everyone, especially to West Africans. Even before this most recent bombings in Kano, when Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was in West Africa, the issue of Boko Haram and regional security in Nigeria was prominent in her talks with Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and Togolese President Faure Gnassingbé, especially because President Faure Gnassingbé has a seat on the UN Security Council. We all know Nigeria is the largest country. If things don't work in Nigeria, if instability in Nigeria makes life in that country difficult, it destabilizes much of the rest of West Africa. There's also concerns, of course, that Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb may be more closely coordinating activities with Boko Haram. I think that concerns about that were reinforced by the scale of the bombings, the multiple coordinated bombings that we most recently saw in Kano.
Now, not long ago, Scott, you were our man in West Africa. Did you get the sense that the people in the West African countries were very concerned about Boko Haram?
Yes, very much so. West Africans always talk about what's going on in Nigeria. When you're a small country and you have a big neighbor, if that big neighbor is having problems, you hear about it. Clearly, the instability in northern Nigeria is a threat to Niger, as countries of the Sahel suffer from Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. The fear that if AQIM is in league or is more coordinating attacks with Boko Haram, that might increase instability across countries that are already victims of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb violence, Mali, Mauritania, Niger among them.
Well, Scott, thanks a lot for that report. Scott Stearns reporting from the U.S. State Department here in Washington.